This is Plant-Based Briefing, Calcium for Vegans, Part 2 by Brigitte Gemme at veganfamilykitchen.com. And I'm Marian Erickson, and this is the curated content plant-based podcast where I narrate articles on healthy, compassionate, and sustainable living with permission for people short on time but curious about all the facets of vegan and plant-based living. Today's article is the second half of a two-parter. I read part 1 yesterday, so go back and listen to that first if you haven't already, and then come back here for part 2. And now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. Calcium for Vegans, My Point of View as a Meal Planner, Woman, and Mother, Part 2 by Brigitte Gemme at veganfamilykitchen.com. How to be a bone-aware vegan. Clearly, calcium matters, to a point. As you can see from the studies cited above, foregoing milk isn't a one-way ticket to the orthopedic surgeon's office. However, bone health is jeopardized by some factors, especially for women, including calcium intake under 525 milligrams per day, low weight relative to height, BMI under 22.5, lack of consistent intake of vitamins B12 and D, which is only guaranteed by supplementation, and insufficient protein intake, under 0.75 grams per kilo per day. In addition, other lifestyle factors such as a sedentary lifestyle and excess caffeine, alcohol, and salt consumption can weaken our bones. My view is that North American calcium recommendations, the 1,000 milligrams per day target, have been erring on the side of more is better due to caution, but also as a result of the influence of overt and covert dairy industry lobbying efforts within the national food and agriculture organizations like the USDA and dietetics associations. However, in practice, once one reaches a reasonable threshold, let's say 600 milligrams calcium per day, additional dietary calcium is probably not required. I will show you below how to reach that target with your daily meals, but for better bone health, vegans and those eating a predominantly plant-based diet also need to pay attention to other plant-based nutrition targets, more specifically ensuring sufficient protein intake thanks to legumes, whole grains, nuts and seeds, and more, and supplementing vitamins B12 and D. Thinner women may also want to particularly emphasize preventive bone health, notably with resistance exercise. More generally, we may need to add context to what we typically consider a healthy BMI for women. Sources of calcium for vegans. Cows eat grass, legumes, and grains and make calcium-rich milk, so we shouldn't be surprised to find out that those plant foods have plenty of calcium for us. Here are the top non-dairy, calcium-rich foods for you to enjoy every day and integrate into your weekly meal plans. Nuts and seeds. 2 tablespoons of nuts or seeds sprinkled on your overnight oats or blended into your waffles will give your daily calcium a big jump start. Chia seeds, 126 milligrams per 2 tablespoons, and almonds, 88 milligrams per quarter cup, lead the pack. Dark leafy greens. Low oxalate greens like cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, kale, cabbage, offer readily available calcium. High oxalate greens like spinach and Swiss chard also have calcium, but less of it is absorbed. 1 cup of chopped green veggies will give you roughly between 50 and 100 milligrams of calcium. Calcium-set tofu. Tofu that is made with calcium sulfate not only tastes better, personal opinion, but it also has a lot more calcium. The range for firm tofu varies widely from over 300 to 1,500 milligrams per cup, so check your favorite brand's nutrition facts. Beans. Chickpeas, black beans, and Great Northern beans offer respectively 80, 46, and a whopping 120 milligrams of calcium per cup. If you enjoy 3 portions of beans per day, as you should, your calcium will get a nice boost. Enjoy edamame beans as an appetizer for an extra 103 milligrams per cup. Some whole grains, quinoa and oatmeal, have a fair bit of calcium, 31 and 21 milligrams per cup respectively. Rice, even brown, however, has very little. Berries. Some berries pack a surprisingly big calcium punch, like blackberries, 42 milligrams per cup, and raspberries, 31 milligrams per cup. It's not the case for all berries, but those tiny fruits have a lot of other nutrients in them, and they taste amazing, especially in season. And supplemented foods. Many commercial vegan staples like plant milks and yogurts are supplemented with calcium. I personally do not consume much of those, but in a pinch, they're not a bad nutritional resource to add to your arsenal. Those might be especially valuable for highly selective people who haven't yet developed a taste for dark leafy greens, aka picky eaters. In short, the key to boost your calcium as a vegan is to eat a wide variety of foods with a focus on vegetables, legumes, and whole grains, with a judicious sprinkle of nuts and seeds. Benefits of plant-based sources of calcium over dairy milk. As Dr. Michael Greger wrote in his book, How Not to Die, our calcium-rich foods of choice don't come with just calcium. The package they come with matters. Quote, dairy is the #1 source of calcium in the United States, but it's also the #1 source of saturated fat. What kind of baggage do you get along with the calcium in green leafy vegetables? Fiber, folate, iron, and antioxidants, some of the very nutrients lacking in milk. By getting most of your nutrition from whole plant foods, you get a bonus instead of baggage. Unquote. Avoiding calcium thieves. Alcohol, caffeine, and smoking are known to reduce the efficiency of calcium absorption. Apparently, so does excess sodium, above 1,500 milligrams per day. Increasing calcium absorption with vitamin D. Healthy bodies are very skilled at regulating the amount of calcium in our blood, yet many sources, including the most authoritative ones like Brenda Davis and Vasanto Molina's Becoming Vegan book, recommend making sure we get ample vitamin D, either by sufficient exposure to sunlight or by supplementation. There is some doubt about the actual benefits of vitamin D supplementation based on studies of calcium absorption and bone health. See the Medical Journal of Australia review piece linked here. Still, there are other reasons to make sure we get enough, but not too much, vitamin D, including as needed through supplementation, so please don't stop. Beyond calcium, exercise for bone health. Health is always more complex than the reductionist, single-nutrient lens makes it seem. Many other vitamins and minerals are required for bone health, but thankfully they're also abundant when eating a diet of whole plant foods. The one ingredient that isn't on your plate, but that you shouldn't neglect, is resistance training or weight-bearing exercise. In addition to promoting bone strength, muscle-building exercise also makes the body stronger in general, decreasing the odds of falls. I love how Dr. Michael Clapper talks about this topic and specifically addresses the study mentioned above that indicated vegans have more bone fractures. For those who prefer to simply walk as opposed to lifting weights or doing higher impact exercise like running, he recommends adding a weighted vest. Watch him here the first 4 minutes or so of this video linked here. Promoting bone health on a plant-based vegan diet. There are 3 main things to remember when it comes to promoting bone health and preventing fractures on a plant-based vegan diet, beyond just worrying about calcium for vegans. 1. Eating a diverse diet of whole plant foods with a focus on dark leafy greens and legumes, plus a sprinkle of nuts and seeds. That should easily take care of getting you over 600 milligrams of dietary calcium per day and more like 700 milligrams, which, based on the research described above, is sufficient for bone health. 2. Adequately supplementing vitamin B12 and vitamin D. And 3. Adding daily resistance exercise to your lifestyle, including impact exercise like jogging rather than just walking, or walking with a weighted vest or lifting weights. I suggest you go get your groceries on foot. You just listened to Calcium for Vegans, My Point of View as a Meal Planner, Woman, and Mother, Part 2, by Brigitte Gemme at veganfamilykitchen.com. And I'm your host, Marian Erickson. And as always, I put a link to the original post in the show notes so you can check out all the links that Brigitte mentioned as well as sources that she cited. And she mentioned in this part of the article how calcium targets in North America are maybe erring on the side of more is better due to caution, but also as a result of the influence of overt and covert dairy industry lobbying efforts within national food and agriculture organizations like the USDA and dietetics associations. A lot of dietitian training is unfortunately funded by big food and big ag. If you're interested in an episode about a dietitian who wasn't taught any of the latest research about plant-based health and nutrition and came by it on her own later, check out episode 396, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. Please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.